One sentence. One speech. He thought it was funny. 500 million pounds. In April 1991, a CEO walked on stage untouchable. He was the golden boy of British business, the man who could do no wrong. 30 seconds later, £500 million was gone. It wasn't a bank heist. It wasn't corporate espionage. Not stolen, not scammed, not hacked. Just spoken away. To understand the crash, you have to understand the height. And to understand the height, you have to understand the 1980s. In the early 1990s, Ratner's group wasn't just a jewelry store. It was an ecosystem. It was everywhere. 2,500 stores across Europe and America. Think about that scale. They had more locations than most fast food chains. They were the largest jewelry retailer on the face of the earth. They owned H. Samuel. They owned Ernest Jones. They owned Watches of Switzerland. They owned Kay Jewelers in the US. If you walked down any high street in Britain, you saw those bright orange signs. They were beacons of the new economy. This was the era of Margaret Thatcher, the era of new money. The working class had cash in their pockets for the first time, and they wanted to flaunt it. If you were working class and you needed a ring, a watch, a promise, you didn't go to Tiffany's, you didn't go to Cartier, you went to Ratners. They didn't sell dreams, they sold access. Before them, jewelry shops were quiet, intimidating places with locked doors and silent carpets. They were designed to keep people out. Ratner's was loud, it was bright, it was a marketplace. Pop music blasted from the speakers. Sale posters covered every inch of glass. It was affordable gold for ordinary people. And the public didn't just like it, they loved it. By 1990, Ratner's controlled 50% of the entire UK jewelry market. Think about that dominance. Every second piece of jewelry sold in Britain came from Gerald. And at the top, Gerald Ratner. He wasn't your typical dusty old money CEO. He didn't speak in riddles. He didn't hide in a boardroom. He was young, sharp, lethally confident. He took over the business from his father in 1984 and turned it into a rocket ship. He drove a Bentley. He flew the Concorde to New York just for lunch. He owned the yacht. He lived a life most people only saw in movies. The press adored him. They called him Jerry. He was the man who took a boring family business and turned it into a high street empire. He was funny. He was charming. He spoke the language of the common man. He famously said he wanted to sell jewelry like groceries. Stack it high, sell it cheap. His motto was simple: pile it high, sell it cheap. He was a disruptor before the word existed. He took the mysticism of diamonds and turned them into commodities. But confidence is a dangerous drug, and Gerald Ratner was about to overdose. He began to believe his own hype. He thought he was untouchable because the profits were untouchable. In 1990 alone, the company posted profits of £125 million. He thought the joke was on the critics. He didn't realize the joke was about to be on him. April 23rd, 1991, the Institute of Directors Annual Conference, the Royal Albert Hall. This isn't just a meeting hall, it's a palace of influence. This is a room full of sharks, CEOs, bankers, journalists, the people who shape the economy. 6,000 of the most powerful people in Europe are sitting in the dark, waiting. Ratner is the guest speaker. The mood is loose. The wine has been flowing for hours. It's not a board meeting, it's a performance. He wants to prove he belongs. He wants to show the establishment that he knows his products are tacky and that he's smart enough to know it. Now here is a detail often missed. He had actually shown the speech to his wife Moira the night before. She read the draft. She stopped. She took a red pen and circled the jokes. She looked at him and said, "Gerald, this is too risky. You can't say this." She begged him to remove it, but he didn't listen. He waved her off. He said, "People love my jokes. It shows confidence." He walked out of the house, leaving the red ink behind. He walks to the podium. He opens with self-deprecation. The crowd loves him. He feels the warmth of the room, that specific seductive comfort that tells a speaker, you can say anything. So, he does. He starts talking about a sherry decanter, a cut glass crystal set that came with 6 glasses and a silver-plated tray. It was one of their best sellers. It looked expensive, it sparkled, and it sold for £4.95. He asked the audience. People say, "How can you sell this for such a low price?" He pauses. He looks out at the sea of tuxedos. He wants to impress them with his honesty. And then he delivers the punchline. I say, because it's total crap. The room explodes. They love it. It's honest. It's funny. To the wealthy elite in the room, this was hilarious. They knew you couldn't make a quality decanter for £5. They thought he was a genius playing an ironic character. Ratner hears the laughter. It intoxicates him. So, riding the high, addicted to the applause, he goes further. He talks about a pair of earrings sold for under £1, gold earrings. He compares them to a shrimp sandwich from Marks & Spencer. He says, the sandwich will probably last longer than the earrings. Inside the Royal Albert Hall, it was a joke, a moment of shared cynicism between the elites. He walked off stage with thunderous applause. He spent the rest of the night drinking champagne, convinced he had just given the speech of his life. But outside those walls, it was a confession. At the back of the room, the journalists weren't clapping, they were writing, because they knew something Ratner had forgotten. He wasn't just talking to the elites in the room, he was talking to his customers. The next morning, the Daily Mirror, a paper read by the very working-class people who shopped at Ratner's, hits the stands. They didn't print the nuance, they printed the betrayal. The headline screamed, "You 22-carat mugs." Subheadline, Ratner calls his own customers fools. The story spread like a virus. BBC News, The Sun, The Times, everyone ran the same story. The billionaire who thinks you're an idiot. The markets opened and the floor fell out. Investors didn't hear a joke, they heard a CEO admitting his product was worthless. There is a rule in business. If the man at the top doesn't believe in the goods, why should the shareholders? Sell, sell, sell. £100 million evaporated in the first hour. Then $300 million. By the time the dust settled, £500 million in market value was erased. That is roughly $1.2 billion in today's money. Gone. In a blink. But the stock price was only half the problem. The real death happened on the high street. Imagine Mrs. Smith, who bought her husband the gold watch for their 25th anniversary. She saved for months for that watch. She felt proud giving it to him. Imagine the young bricklayer who saved up to buy his fiancée an engagement ring. They looked at those items with pride, but after that morning, they looked at them with shame. They suddenly felt like fools. They felt mocked. They realized that while they were handing over their hard-earned cash, Gerald Ratner was laughing at them behind their backs. The jewelry hadn't changed physically. The gold was the same gold, the diamonds were the same diamonds. But the magic was dead. Sales didn't just drop, they plummeted. People stopped walking into the stores. It became embarrassing to be seen carrying a Ratner's bag. The year before the speech, Ratner's made $112 million profit. The year after the speech, they posted $122 million loss. That is a $250 million swing caused by 2 sentences. Ratner had committed the ultimate sin. He hadn't just insulted the product, he insulted the gesture. He made his own customers the punchline of a joke told by rich men in a fancy hall. He apologized. Of course he did. He went on TV. He explained the context. He begged. He hired a new chairman to try and steady the ship. But the chairman looked at the numbers, looked at the public anger, and realized there was only one solution. In November 1992, Gerald Ratner was fired. He was thrown out of the company his father founded. He was thrown out of the company he built into a global giant. He lost his job, he lost his shares, he lost his reputation. He went from riding in a Bentley to riding a bicycle because he couldn't afford the gas. He had to sell the yacht, he had to sell the houses. For 7 years, he sat on his sofa, unemployed, reading articles about what a failure he was. But the brand suffered a fate worse than bankruptcy. The name Ratner's was so toxic, so radioactive, that the new management had to scrub it from the history books. They closed hundreds of stores, they rebranded the entire company as the Signet Group. Today, Signet is the largest jewelry retailer in the world. They own Kay, Zales, and Jared. That could have been Gerald's legacy. Instead, he's a footnote. This wasn't Twitter. This wasn't cancel culture. This was the raw power of trust. Gerald Ratner proved that in business, you're not selling gold, you're selling belief. And the moment you laugh at the people buying it, you're paying for the joke. To the tune of 500 million pounds. Gerald Ratner is not alone. History is littered with titans who thought they were too big to fail. From the boardroom to the battlefield, arrogance is the most expensive currency in the world. We are here to document the collapses, to read the fine print, to understand why they fell. If you want to learn from the mistakes of the past so you don't repeat them in the future, subscribe to Red Ink History, because history is written by the victors, but the most valuable lessons come from the losers.